Story number 1. The motel room that changes while you sleep. The room was exactly as I left it when I fell asleep. Same stained carpet, same broken blinds, same water-damaged ceiling. But when I woke at 3:47 a.m., the door was on the wrong wall. The window faced a different direction, and the bathroom contained a bathtub that hadn't been there when I checked in. This was October 4th, 2023. I was driving cross-country on a budget. Sacramento to Nashville. 7 days of driving. 7 nights of the cheapest motels I could find. The Sunset Inn off Highway 80 in Elko, Nevada charged $32 per night. Cash only. No ID required. The kind of place that asks no questions. The kind of place you pay exactly what it advertises. Room 14. Ground floor. End of the building. The manager, a man in his 60s who smelled like cigarettes and something else. Something medicinal, slid the key across the counter without making eye contact. Old-fashioned key. Brass. Heavy. The kind that actually requires a locksmith to duplicate. The room was exactly what $32 bought. Carpet that had seen 3 decades of foot traffic. Bedspread in a pattern designed to hide stains rather than display aesthetics. 1 lamp. 1 chair. 1 television with 4 functioning channels. A bathroom with a shower-only configuration, no tub and a mirror that had developed a silver lesion in the lower right corner, like decay eating the reflective surface from behind. I checked the room, checked under the bed, checked the closet, checked the bathroom. Standard procedure. 19 years of budget travel had taught me the habits. Nothing unusual, nothing concerning, just poverty-level accommodation, doing exactly what it promised. I fell asleep at 9:47 p.m., exhausted from 12 hours of driving. Set my alarm for 5:30 a.m. I woke at 3:47 a.m., not from the alarm, from wrongness. The feeling you get when something is off, but your conscious mind hasn't processed what yet. A low-frequency dissonance, like a sound just below hearing range. I lay still, eyes open, let my vision adjust. The lamp was in the correct position. The television was correct. The chair was correct. The chair was correct. The door was on the wrong wall. When I checked in, the door was on the east wall. I knew this because it faced the parking lot. Faced east. I'd parked my car outside and watched it through the window as I settled in. The door was east. The window was west, facing the rear of the property. The fence. The darkness beyond. Now the door was on the north wall. The window was on the south wall. The furniture arrangement was identical, same positions relative to each other, but the room had rotated. The entire room had physically turned 45 degrees while I slept. I sat up. The carpet under my feet was the same carpet. The stains matched. The wear patterns matched. The room was identical in every detail except its orientation. I crossed the window, looked out. The parking lot was where I'd expected the back fence. My car was visible, but it was approaching from the wrong angle. The building's exterior had rotated to match the interior. I opened the door. The parking lot was directly outside, as expected, but the door was on the north wall instead of east. The building had rotated. The entire physical structure had changed orientation while I slept. Beeble, the bathroom door was in the same position, but the bathroom itself was different, larger. And instead of the shower-only configuration I'd used before bed, there was now a bathtub. Clawfoot. White. Old. The kind that belongs in a Victorian house. Standing where the shower had been. I approached slowly. The tub was empty. Clean. But the chrome faucets were running. A thin stream of cold water. The drain was open. The water disappeared. But the sound was wrong. Too loud. Like the water was falling much farther than 4 inches to a drain. I reached over. Turned off the faucet. The water stopped. But the drain sound continued. Gurgling. Deep. Like something very far below was accepting the last of what had flowed. Then the tub had water in it. I hadn't turned the faucet back on. but the tub was filling, slowly, from below, water rising from the drain upward, filling in reverse. And in that water as it rose, I saw something. A shape below the surface, below where the tub's bottom should be. A figure, down in the impossible depth that the tub apparently contained, floating, looking up at me through the rising water. I ran, grabbed my keys, left everything else, left my bag, left my clothes, left the room, ran to my car, started the engine, drove. I was 40 miles from Elko before I stopped shaking enough to pull over safely. I called the Sunset Inn from my phone, 3 rings. The manager answered. Sunset Inn, room 14, I said. The room changed. The door moved. The bathroom changed. There was something in the bathtub. Silence. Then, you were in room 14? Yes. I paid cash at 9 p.m. You gave me the brass key. I don't have a room 14. His voice was careful, controlled. The Sunset Inn has 13 rooms. We've always had 13 rooms. Room 14 doesn't exist. I slept in it. I paid $32. You were behind the counter. Gray hair, blue shirt. Sir, I work alone here, and I don't know how you got a key to a room that doesn't exist. But if I were you, I'd throw that key in the nearest ditch and not come back. I still had the key, had grabbed it automatically when I fled. Brass, heavy, 14 engraved on the bow. I researched the Sunset Inn, found TripAdvisor reviews going back to 2011, consistent description of the property, 13 rooms, standard single-story motel, nothing about room 14. But in the reviews I found a comment buried 3 years back. User, Nave, Bada, Nighthawk, stayed in room 13. Woke up in the middle of the night and my room had changed. Not the furniture, the room itself. Different walls, different layout. Found a bathtub that wasn't there when I checked in. Saw something in the water. Left immediately. Don't stay at Sunset Inn. Especially not at the end of the building. Same experience. Different room number. Different year. Same phenomenon. I found 2 more reports. Both describing rooms that changed orientation during the night. Both describing a bathtub that appeared. Both describing something seen in the water as it rose. None of them described what they saw in the water. Not clearly, just phrases, wrong shape. Too many angles, not floating, watching. I went back to Elko 3 months later. Drove past the Sunset Inn during daylight. Counted the rooms. 13 doors. 13 numbers. 1 through 13. But at the end of the building past door, 13 the wall continued for another 15 feet before the building ended. 15 feet of wall with no door, no window, no access, a blank wall. The footprint of a room that had no entrance, no number, no existence. Room 14, sealed, present but inaccessible, except at night, except when someone paid $32 cash to a manager who might not exist, except when the room reached out and gave itself a door and placed itself in a building that officially didn't contain it. I still have the key. Keep it in my glove box. The brass is tarnishing now. The number 14 is still legible, but something else has appeared below the number, scratched into the metal. Not machined, not official, just scratched. Like fingernails on soft brass. It says, "Come back." The tub is still running. I know it is. The water rising from below. The figure floating in impossible depth. Looking up at the surface, waiting for whoever enters room 14 next. Waiting for the next person who pays cash without asking questions. Without checking the room count. Without noticing that the building has 14 doors worth of wall space but only 13 doors. I'll never go back. But every time I drive Highway 80 through Nevada, I slow down as I pass Elko. And every time, for exactly 3 seconds, I see the Sunset Inn sign. And I count the doors in my peripheral vision. And something that might be a door, might be exactly where room 14 should be, catches the light differently. Like it's almost there. Like it's waiting to be seen. Like it knows I've been inside. Like it's keeping my place. Like the water is still rising. The figure still watching. Still waiting for me to come back and look over the edge of that impossible tub and finally see what's been looking up at me from whatever depth exists below a motel bathroom in Elko, Nevada. Story number 2. The Airbnb host Weajo is Alerti Einsid. I arrived at the Airbnb outside Baton Rouge at 11:15 p.m. Let myself in with the lockbox code, confirmed the property was empty, locked the deadbolt, and at 2:30 a.m. found the host sitting in the kitchen eating cereal as though he lived there, which according to listing terms he absolutely was not allowed to do, but which according to the expression on his face he had been doing for the past 3 hours while I slept 6 feet away. This was February 17th, 2024. I was attending a conference in Baton Rouge. Hotels near the venue were $200 per night. The Airbnb was $48. Private room, private bathroom, full kitchen access. The listing description said, entire home rental, host lives off-site. You will have complete privacy and sole access to the property. The listing had 4.8 stars, 47 reviews, all positive, nothing concerning. Profile showed a man named Gary with a verified ID badge. Profile photo showed someone mid-50s, friendly smile. Outdoor background, normal. The lockbox code worked. I entered the property. A small house. 3 rooms visible from the entry. Living room, kitchen, hallway leading to bedrooms. The house smelled like cleaning products over something older, something the cleaning products were trying to suppress. I checked every room. Methodical. Every closet. Every bathroom. Under the 2 beds. Behind the shower curtain. The house was empty. I confirmed this at 11:21 p.m. Empty house. Locked deadbolt. Me alone. I set my laptop bag on the kitchen table. Made tea. Reviewed conference materials until midnight. Then went to bed. I woke at 2:32 a.m. needing water. Got up. Walked to the kitchen. Gary was sitting at the kitchen table. The same table where I'd set my laptop bag. My bag had been moved to the counter. Gary sat where my bag had been. A bowl of cereal in front of him. He was eating slowly, methodically, reading something on his phone. He didn't react to me entering the kitchen. Didn't look up, didn't acknowledge my presence. Just ate cereal and scrolled his phone. Gary, I said. He looked up. Casual, unhurried. Oh hey, sleep okay? What are you doing here? The listing says you live off-site. I do. Mostly. He looked back at his phone. Scrolled. I come back sometimes, when I need to. You need to leave. This is my rental. You're not supposed to be here. He looked at me again. This time differently. His eyes were wrong. Not unfocused, too intense. Fixed on my face with a stillness that reminded me of predators. I live here. I've always lived here. The listing says off-site because guests prefer that, but I don't actually go anywhere. He returned to his phone. I'm always here. My phone was in the bedroom. I backed away, didn't take my eyes off him, got to the bedroom, grabbed my phone, locked the bedroom door, called Airbnb support. 23-minute hold time. I sat against the door, listening, hearing cereal spoon against bowl, hearing the refrigerator open, hearing Gary move through the kitchen with the ease of someone in their own home. Because he was in his own home, had never left. Airbnb support took my report, apologized, offered a refund, said they'd contact the host, asked if I felt unsafe. Yes, I said. Do you want us to call police? Yes. Police arrived 41 minutes later. I let them in, showed them Gary in the kitchen. He was now watching television, remote in hand. Snacks on the coffee table. The posture of a man spending a quiet evening at home. The officer spoke to him. He was cooperative, polite, explained that he owned the property, that he'd always lived there, that the Airbnb listing was technically accurate because he mostly stayed out of guest areas, that he'd only come to the kitchen because he was hungry. You were here the entire time? An officer asked. I'm always here, Gary said. Same words you said to me. Same tone. Like a fact. Like weather. Where were you when the guest arrived? Gary pointed toward the hallway. The hallway I'd checked. The hallway I'd confirmed was empty. Back bedroom. I stay quiet when guests arrive. Don't want to intrude. Did you hear the guests checking the rooms? Yes. Were you hiding? He thought about this. I was being considerate, staying out of the way. The officers couldn't charge him. He owned the property. He hadn't threatened me. hadn't stolen anything, hadn't violated a law with clear criminal statute. Airbnb's listing policy wasn't their jurisdiction. It was a civil matter. They stayed while I gathered my belongings, escorted me to my car. One officer stayed to have a further conversation with Gary. The other walked me out. "Has this happened before?" I asked the officer. He hesitated. "We've had calls here twice before. Both times, guests discovered the host was present. Same situation. He's always here. Says he lives here," which he does. The listing technically doesn't prohibit it, or the language is vague enough that his lawyer argued successfully it doesn't. He has a lawyer? He's had complaints before. Has a lawyer on retainer apparently. I drove to a hotel, paid the $200, lay in my room processing, thinking about Gary sitting in that kitchen, eating cereal at 2:30 a.m. Had he been there the entire time? Had he sat in that back bedroom while I checked the house? While I stood in that hallway and confirmed it was empty? Had he been inches from me while I checked under the beds? While I confirmed the house was unoccupied? Had he been there the whole time, just sitting quietly in a room I'd checked and somehow not seen him? I reviewed the Airbnb reviews, read more carefully, looking for anything I'd missed in my initial screening. And I found them, hidden in positive reviews, buried in language designed not to alarm. Comfortable stay but heard noises in the house overnight, probably just settling. Old house. Thought I was alone but felt like someone was home. Maybe just the neighborhood sounds. Woke up to find the kitchen rearranged. Maybe I moved things without remembering. Good value for money. Felt watched the entire stay. Not sure why. Queen property. All rated 4 stars or above. All containing buried unease. All dismissed by reviewers who'd explained away their instincts, who'd paid their $48 and decided the wrongness wasn't worth the drama of reporting. 47 reviews, 47 guests. Gary had been there for all of them. In that back bedroom, quiet, considerate, listening, waiting for 2:30 a.m. when he felt comfortable coming out for cereal. I reported him thoroughly. Airbnb eventually suspended the listing. But Gary didn't move. Gary was always there, had always been there. The property was his. The listing was gone, but Gary remained. I found his address through public records. Drove past once. Out of some compulsion I couldn't entirely justify. The house looked exactly as I remembered. Small, neat, lights on inside, and in the kitchen window, barely visible through the gap in the curtains, a figure, sitting at the table, eating something, watching the street. Gary, always home, always eating cereal at whatever hour suited him, always present in properties that guests assumed were theirs, always quiet, always considerate, always listening to someone else breathe through walls that weren't as solid as they appeared. I never stayed in an Airbnb again. Couldn't. Every cheap listing now made me think about what might be in the back bedroom. What might be sitting very still in a room I'd declared empty. What might be listening to me sleep. Waiting for hunger or boredom or some need I'd never understand to bring it out of the dark and put it at my kitchen table at 2:30 a.m. Eating cereal, scrolling its phone, as though it had never left. Because it hadn't. Because it never would. Story number 3. The hostel that books the same bed twice. The top bunk of bed 7 in the Meridian Hostel in Denver was assigned to me at check-in. But when I climbed up at midnight and settled in, there was already someone sleeping there. Someone who didn't appear in the room's light. Someone who the other guests couldn't see. Someone who spoke directly into my ear and told me things about the other sleeping guests that they'd never shared with anyone. This was July 29, 2024, Denver, attending a music festival. 3 nights at the Meridian Hostel, $26 per night. 12-bed dormitory, standard backpacker accommodation. The receptionist checked me in. Young woman, nose ring. Efficient. Handed me a key card and bed assignment, room C, bed 7, top bunk. Gave me the Wi-Fi password, pointed me toward the dormitory. Room C was exactly what hostels looked like everywhere. 6 bunk beds, 12 lockers, 1 window, 11 people already present, some sleeping, some on phones, the ambient sound of multiple people breathing in shared space. Bed 7 was the 3rd bunk from the door. Left wall, bottom bunk occupied a man in his 30s, already asleep, snoring lightly. I climbed the ladder to the top, settled in, pulled the curtain that offered token privacy. My backpack locked in the locker, phone charging on the shelf, ready for sleep. The bunk was occupied, not by a person I could see, but by a presence I could feel. The mattress was wrong, compressed on the right side in a pattern suggesting weight, a body. Human-shaped depression in the foam, but no person visible. I moved left. The presence moved with me, or rather, the mattress adjusted around me, like sharing a bed with someone who's trying to accommodate, trying to make room. Then breath, on my neck, warm, close, someone breathing directly against my neck, from a face that should have been 6 inches from mine. I froze, every muscle locked. The breathing continued, regular, patient. "Don't be frightened," a voice said. It came from exactly where the breathing came from. 6 inches, female, low, completely calm. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm always here, in this bunk." They double book it sometimes, or they forget. I've been in this bunk for 3 years. "You're not real," I said, whispered it, trying not to disturb the other guests. "Look at the mattress," she said. I looked. In the thin light from the curtain gap, the mattress showed an impression. Human-shaped, present, real. "What are you?" "I stayed here. 3 years ago, I was backpacking Europe, then America. July 29th, 2021. I checked into this bed, and somewhere during the night, I stopped. The medical examiner said cardiac event. Arrhythmia, 24 years old, healthy. Nobody saw it coming. You died in this bed, and this bunk. Yes, and I've been here since. I can't leave. I've tried. I walk to the door, but I come back to the bunk, always back to the bunk. This is where I stopped. This is where I stay." I lay in silence, processing. The presence remained. The depression in the mattress maintained its shape. The breathing continued, regular, patient. Dead lungs still moving air out of habit. "What do you want?" I finally asked. "Company," she said, "and I can tell you things about the other people in this room. I watch them sleep. I've been watching people sleep for 3 years. You learn things about people when they sleep. They talk, they cry, they confess things to darkness they'd never say in light. That's an invasion of privacy." "Yes, but I'm dead. I've made my peace with inappropriate knowledge." A pause. The man in the bunk, the low yours. "Jason. He's been searching for his brother for 9 years. His brother disappeared in Denver. Jason comes back every July. Stays in this hostel, walks the same streets, checks the same shelters. He's been here 7 times. He never finds his brother, but he can't stop coming. I looked over the edge of my bunk. Jason below, snoring, a man with a secret pilgrimage, a man visiting the city that took his brother. The woman in bed 3. She's about to quit her job. Tonight, she decided. She's been debating it for 2 years. Tonight she dreamed about it, and when she woke she knew. She hasn't told anyone yet. You're the first person to know, before even her. I looked at bed 3. A woman maybe 40, sleeping peacefully, carrying the weight of a decision I wasn't supposed to know. The teenage boy in bed 11. He's running away from something. Not a person. A version of himself. He left a city and a life, and came to Denver thinking geography would solve what's actually interior. He'll realize by Thursday. He'll cry. He'll call home. I looked at the boy. Young, maybe 18, curled small under his blanket. "Stop," I said. "This isn't right. These are private people. Their stories are private." "I know. But I've had no one to tell for 3 years. I've accumulated 3 years of sleeping strangers' secrets. 3 years of watching people come and go. Watching people from bed 7 who don't know about me, who think the mattress depression is just wear, who feel the breathing and dismiss it as drafts. 3 years alone with all these secrets and no one to share them with. Her voice broke slightly. For the first time, the dead calm of it fractured. Just slightly. Just enough. I was backpacking to escape, she said. I had things at home I was running from. A relationship that was destroying me. A family that didn't understand me. I thought travel would fix it. I was going to go to South America next. I had my hostel booked in Bogota. Had my flight. I was 3 days from leaving. I'm sorry. Don't be. I've had time to process. 3 years is a long time to be alone with your thoughts. I've made peace with the cardiac event, with the arrhythmia, with the 24 years. What I haven't made peace with is the being stuck, the being here, unable to go to Bogota, unable to do anything except watch other people live their transient lives in 12-hour increments. I can tell someone your name, where you are. Maybe someone can help. My name is Cassie Wallace. I was from Portland. My parents still live there. They visit my grave once a month, according to my sister who stayed here 2 years ago. She didn't know I was present. I tried to talk to her, but she couldn't hear me. You're the first person in 3 years who can hear me. I lay awake until dawn. Cassie talked. I listened. She told me stories about the hostel, about guests, about the strange liminal lives of people who sleep in $12 beds, about the confessions that leak from people in sleep, about the loneliness of the permanent traveler who can no longer travel. At dawn, she faded. The mattress depression normalized. The breathing stopped. I checked out at 9 a.m., spoke to the receptionist. Bed 7, top bunk. Has anyone died there? The receptionist looked up. Something in her face shifted. That's an unusual question. Please, has someone died in that bunk? She typed something. Checked a screen. That's not information we share with guests. Cassie Wallace. Portland, 3 years ago. The receptionist's face went completely still. How do you know that name? She told me. She's still there. Still in that bunk. She can't leave. The receptionist, her name tag said Petra, looked around, made sure nobody was close, then leaned forward. We don't book bed 7, top bunk. We haven't for 3 years. We tell the system it's out of service. But sometimes, the system auto-books it when we're at capacity. Like last night. She swallowed. You're not the first guest who's heard her. 3 others have come to this desk with her name. In 3 years. She wants to go to Bogota. She had a hostel booked. She had a flight. She's been stuck here for 3 years trying to get to South America. Petra was crying. Quietly. Professionally suppressed but present. Her parents have called. Twice. Asking if we knew anything. If any of our staff had known her. Call them. Tell them she's here. Tell them she's not suffering. Tell them she's watching people and accumulating stories, and she wants her sister to know she heard her when she stayed 2 years ago. Even if she couldn't respond, she heard. I left Denver the next morning, drove south, and I made a detour. Through Colorado, through New Mexico, into Texas. And I kept driving south. I'm not going to Bogota, but I drove as far south as my schedule allowed and stood at the border looking at the sky, and I said aloud, Cassie, from Portland, your flight to South America was supposed to leave Denver 3 years ago. You were going to make it. I'm at the border standing here for you. The road south is open. The sky is clear. If you can hear this wherever you are in that hostel in Denver. If you can find a way to make the departure you never made. The road is clear. Go. I don't know if it worked. Don't know if ghosts can travel by proxy. Don't know if a declaration at the Texas-Mexico border does anything for a presence trapped in a top bunk in Denver. But Petra called me 2 weeks later. The mattress depression is gone, she said. Bed 7. We had a guest in the top bunk last night. They slept fine. Heard nothing. The reception last night said there was a moment around 2 a.m. where the window opened by itself. Just briefly. Just for a minute. Then closed again. A minute of open window. A minute of night air admitted. A minute of departure. Maybe enough. Maybe just enough. Story number 4. The budget inn room that records everything. I checked into room 6 at the Valley Budget Inn in rural Tennessee for $40 cash and discovered at 3 a.m. that every surface in the room was covered in writing carved into wood, scratched into metal, written in substances I didn't examine too closely. Thousands of lines of text documenting every conversation, every private act, every intimate moment of every guest who had ever stayed there. Going back to 1958. This was March 9th, 2024. Driving from Chicago to Atlanta. Needed sleep. The Valley Budget Inn appeared on the highway. No chains. No affiliates. Just a sign. Rooms $40. Vaccinacy. This was Central Tennessee. Rural. Quiet. No alternatives for 40 miles. The check-in office was a converted front room of what had once been a house. The owner was a woman in her 80s. Tiny. White hair. She took my $40. Gave me a key without looking at me. Room 6, she said. Any rules I should know about? Don't read the walls, she said. She still hadn't looked at me. Just sleep. Leave in the morning. Don't read the walls. I should have asked what that meant. I should have said, what walls? What writing? I should have pressed her, but she was already turning away, already retreating into the back of her house, already dismissing me. Room 6 was standard construction. Wood paneling on the walls. The kind of dark paneling popular in the 60s and 70s. Drop ceiling. Industrial carpet. One bed. One lamp. One chair. I didn't see the writing until I turned off the overhead light and only the lamp remained. The lower light changed the angles, changed the shadows, and in those shadows the texture of the wood paneling resolved into something else. Into density. Into information. The walls were covered in text. Not printed. Not painted. Carved, scratched, written, etched, burned into every surface. The wood paneling. The ceiling tiles. The back of the headboard. The nightstand. The door. Every inch of every surface contained dense, small text. Thousands of lines. Hundreds of thousands of words. I got close to the nearest section. Held the lamp close. Read. March 4th, 1991. 11:17 p.m. Richard and Barbara Holt, room 6. Richard said, I don't love her anymore. I haven't for years. Barbara didn't respond. She was already asleep. Richard sat in the chair for 47 minutes looking at the door. I moved to another section. June 22, 2004, 2:33 a.m. Man named David, no last name given at check-in. Crying. 40 minutes of crying. Called a number 17 times. No one answered. Fell asleep with phone in hand. In his sleep he said, I should have stayed. I should have never left. Another section. September 8th, 1978, 8:15 p.m. Young couple. She said she was pregnant. He said nothing for 11 minutes. 11 minutes of silence recorded. Then he asked, Are you sure? She said she was sure. He asked, What do we do? She said she didn't know. They fell asleep, not touching. I stepped back, looked at the room. Every surface, every inch. 66 years of occupation, 66 years of private moments, private words, private silences, private grief and joy and nothing and everything that happened in a $40 room in rural Tennessee. The walls had been recording, not electronically, physically, organically. The way trees record years in rings. The room was recording its guests, storing their words, their actions, their private realities. I looked at the ceiling above the bed, read directly overhead. November 19, 2003, 1:45 a.m. Woman alone. Her name was Susan. She spoke to someone who wasn't there, said, I know you can hear me. I know you're still somewhere. I just need you to know that I'm okay. I'm driving and I'm okay and I miss you every day. But I'm okay. The room believed her. The room records. She was not okay, but she was trying. I read for 2 hours. Couldn't stop. The walls were a library of human transients, of people who stayed one night in a $40 room and said things they'd never say anywhere else. Who cried, where no one could judge them. Who confessed to empty rooms. Who had arguments that defined relationships. Who had moments of clarity at 3 a.m. that they'd forgotten by 5. The room had witnessed all of it, had kept all of it, had written it down in its own surface. The wood remembering. The metal remembering. Even the carpet had fibers shaped by years of specific footstep patterns, evidence of pacing, of standing at the window, of sitting on the floor against the wall at specific times of specific nights. Then I found my own section. Fresh carving, pale wood where the tool had just cut, still fragrant, still raw, at eye level, right where I'd been standing. March 9th, 2024, 11:47 p.m. Man, 43. He found the writing. He's reading it now. His hands are shaking slightly. He's been alone for 4 years since the divorce. He's driving to Atlanta for a job interview that he believes will change his life. He doesn't know the interview has already been given to another candidate. He received the rejection email at 11:12 p.m. He hasn't checked his phone since 10:30 p.m. When he reads this, he will check his phone. He will read the email. He will sit in the chair for longer than he realizes. The room will record. He is not okay, but he is trying. I checked my phone. The email was there. Rejection. Sent at 11:12 p.m. While I was driving. While I was checking in. While I was unaware. I sat in the chair where Richard Holt had sat in 1991, looking at the door after admitting he didn't love his wife. The chair where people across 66 years had sat with their private failures. I sat there, longer than I realized, and at some point I started talking. To the room, to whatever presence the room represented. I needed this job, I said. I needed to make this work. I'd been driving towards something for 4 months. Telling myself it would be okay. Telling myself the next thing would fix it. The room listened. The room recorded. I know it did, because somewhere on those walls, in fresh carving, my words exist. My specific failure, my specific night of sitting in a chair at 3 a.m. in a $40 room, admitting to no one and everyone and the wood-paneled walls that I didn't know what I was doing, or where I was going, or whether the next thing would fix anything at all. I left at sunrise. Didn't say anything to the old woman at check-in. Just left the key on the counter and walked to my car. I've thought about what she said. Don't read the walls. I wonder how many guests followed that instruction. How many slept fine and left fine and never knew the room had spent the night writing about them, documenting them, adding them to its archive of human fragility. The Valley Budget Inn is still there, still charging $40, still filling room 6 with travelers who need somewhere to stop, somewhere to be honest, in the dark, somewhere that will remember them even after they've forgotten the night. The walls are reading this. The walls remember everything. 66 years of every person who paid $40 and lay in that bed and spoke their truth to ceiling tiles that recorded every syllable. And somewhere on those walls, between Richard Holt's 1991 admission and some future guest's future failure, my night exists. My words carved in wood. My rejection email. My chair sitting. My $40 confession. The room knows. The room keeps. The room records. Don't read the walls, unless you're ready to see yourself written there, unless you're ready to know that your private night in a budget motel is permanent, is documented, is part of the room's memory, as permanent as the wood, as lasting as the carved text that records 66 years of human transience, as permanent as what I said to those walls at 3 a.m. When I thought no one was listening, the room was always listening. Story number 5, the campground that ate his extray tensed overnight. I was the only person at the Hollow Creek campground in Virginia when I set up my tent at 9 p.m. But when I woke at 3:19 a.m., there were 11 additional tents surrounding mine, all facing inward, all containing sleeping shapes, all perfectly silent. And when I unzipped my tent to look outside, every one of the 11 tent zippers began opening simultaneously in response. This was April 27, 2024. Solo camping trip. Blue Ridge Mountains. The Hollow Creek campground was a primitive site, no hookups, no facilities except a single pit toilet. $7 per night paid via an envelope system. I'd found it on a hiking forum. Undiscovered gem. Remote, always empty. I arrived at 8:47 p.m. Evening light fading. The campground was a small clearing with a fire ring and numbered stakes marking 12 potential sites. I was the only vehicle, the only tent, the only person. I set up in site 3. Central position. Good view of the entrance road. I'd know if anyone arrived. Could hear vehicles. Could see headlights. No one arrived. I ate dinner. Made a small fire. Read by headlamp until 9:30 p.m. Killed the fire as required. Zipped my tent. Fell asleep by 10. I woke at 3:19 a.m. Not from a sound. From absence of sound. Camping alone produces ambient noise, wind, insects, occasional animal movement. What woke me was silence. Complete silence. The kind that only happens when everything that should be making sound has stopped. I lay still. Listening. Nothing. The insects were silent. The wind was stopped. The trees weren't moving. Everything had frozen. I turned on my headlamp. The tent fabric lit from inside. I could see the tent's walls. And through the walls, the thin nylon through which shape is visible. I saw something. Shapes on all sides. Close shapes. Tent shapes. 6-sided silhouettes. The distinctive profile of tents. Surrounding me. Multiple. Equidistant. In a ring. I unzipped my sleeping bag slowly, moved to the tent door. Put my hand on the zipper. Every tent surrounding mine moved simultaneously, not pitching in wind, not rustling, deliberate movement, the kind that comes from something inside responding to stimuli from outside. I didn't open my zipper, but I held it, my headlamp illuminating only the interior. I counted shapes through the nylon. 1, 2, 3, 4 around my visible perimeter. More behind me, presumably. 12 tent spaces in the campground, all filled. When I'd been the only one here, no vehicles had arrived. I would have heard engines, would have seen lights. But 12 tents had appeared in complete silence, had positioned themselves in a ring around Site 3, had oriented themselves inward, toward me. "Hello," I said, not loudly, just enough to reach the nearest tent. Silence. Is someone there? The sleeping shapes in the surrounding tents were visible, the lumpy silhouettes of bodies in sleeping bags. 11 tents, each containing someone. 11 people who had arrived in complete silence, who had set up their camps without sound, who were sleeping in perfect synchronization, all breathing at the same rate. I could see their chests rising and falling through the nylon. Identical rhythm, 1 breath per 6 seconds, unified, mechanical. I recorded everything on my phone. 11 tents, visible sleeping figures, moving together with unified breath. Then I touched my zipper again. The 11 tent zippers moved again. The sound was unmistakable in the absolute silence. 11 zippers, all moving at the same speed, all opening in response to my hand touching mine. Perfectly synchronized, perfectly responsive. I let go of my zipper. 11 zippers stopped. Simultaneously, I grabbed my zipper again. 11 zippers moved. They were mirroring me, responding to me. Whatever sat in those tents was waiting for me to open my door, was ready to open its own doors the moment I opened mine. 11 entities in 11 tents who wanted to match my action, wanted to emerge at the same moment I emerged. I lay back down, slowly, carefully, keeping my hand off the zipper. The 11 surrounding tents settled. The sleeping shapes returned to their still breathing synchronization. I lay on my back with my headlamp off, listening to 11 sets of sleeping shapes breathe at identical rates. 6 seconds, 6 seconds, 6 seconds. And I realized the rhythm was changing, matching something else now, matching my heartbeat, accelerating as my fear accelerated, decelerating when I forced myself calm. They were synchronized to me, to my physiology, to my breath and pulse and fear. Dawn came at 5:47 a.m., slow light filtering through tree cover. When it was fully light, when I could see colors instead of shapes, I unzipped my tent. The 11 surrounding tents unzipped simultaneously. Every door opened at once, empty. Every tent was empty. Every tent was empty. The sleeping shapes that had been visible through nylon and darkness were absent in light. No sleeping bags. No mattresses. Just empty nylon shells. 11 tents with no contents. I left everything. My tent. My food bag. My camp chair. Just packed my sleeping bag and drove out. I posted on the hiking forum where I'd found the campground. Described everything. Responses came within hours. User Appalachian, Coast, Hollow Creek. I know this site. I camped there in 2019. Same thing. Woke to surrounding tents. Counted 8. Waited until dawn. They were empty when light came. I thought I'd imagined it. User Mountain Square Solo. Same experience, July 2021. I counted 9 tents. I made the mistake of opening my door. When I did, all 9 surrounding tent doors opened. I looked inside the nearest one. Empty. But warm inside. Body temperature warm. Like someone had just been there. Like the warmth remained after the presence left. User Trail Workwistitz. I've researched this campground. The 12 tent sites were laid out by the original builder in 1963. They were specifically arranged in a circle because the builder believed the site had spiritual significance. He thought the circle formation would attract what he called the congregation. People thought he was eccentric. He died in 1971 at that campground. At Site 3, specifically, his family reported that the morning they found his body, the other 11 sites were occupied by tents. But when they looked inside, all the tents were empty. Whatever arrives at Hollow Creek when a single camper settles alone at Site 3 in the dark. Whatever sets up camp in silence. Whatever breathes in synchronization. Whatever mirrors the actions of the living. Whatever keeps body temperature warmth in empty nylon shells. I went back for my tent. Daylight. Midday. The campground was empty. My tent was still standing. The other 11 sites were bare. No evidence of 11 tents. No tent stake holes. No compressed grass. Nothing, except at the perimeter of each of the other 11 sites. A small stone, placed precisely, centered on each stake marker. 11 stones, placed by hands that shouldn't have been there. Placed by the congregation after I left. A marker, a record of their attendance. I took 1 stone with me. Smooth, river stone, dark gray. It shouldn't have been at that elevation. River stones lived in valleys, in streams, transported uphill only by intention. I kept it. Still have it on my dashboard. Sometimes I notice it's warm. Warmer than ambient temperature. Body temperature. The warmth that mountain solo described finding in the empty tent. And sometimes at night in parking lots, in rest areas. Anywhere I sleep in my car, I wake at 3:19 a.m. And I hear it, faint but present. The sound of zippers, moving in response to mine. Moving in anticipation, waiting for me to open my door so they can open theirs. So the congregation can emerge simultaneously. So whatever attends Site 3 can attend wherever I am. I don't open my car door at 3:19 a.m. anymore. I don't touch my door handle. I don't make any motion that could be mirrored. I just lie still and listen to the zippers and count them and wonder if the number is still 11 or if the congregation has grown. Story number 6. The hostel Reby that appeared on the W site before my stay. I booked the Ridgeline Hostel in Asheville for $29 a night and read the reviews before confirming. And the most recent review posted 11 days earlier was from my username. On the date of my upcoming stay, describing in specific detail everything that would happen to me during the night I hadn't yet experienced. This was May 3rd, 2024, planning a weekend trip to Asheville. Found the Ridgeline Hostel on a booking platform. Good reviews. Central location. $29 per night. I always read reviews before booking. Old habit. I scrolled through. The reviews were positive. Clean. Friendly staff. Good location. Standard hostel experience. The most recent review stopped me. Username. Road Drifter Dan. My username. The exact username I used on every booking platform. My handle since 2011. Posted April 22nd, 2024. 11 days before my trip. I hadn't posted this review. I hadn't stayed at this hostel. I hadn't been to Asheville in 3 years. I read it. Stayed here May 3rd to 5th. The hostel is fine until night. The problem started exactly 2:09 a.m. both nights. First night, someone in the bunk above mine began moving. Rhythmic, not sleep movement. Intentional, repetitive. I kept my eyes closed. When the movement stopped at precisely 3:07 a.m., I felt the mattress depressed beside me. Something had joined me on the bottom bunk. I didn't move until dawn. Second night, I made the mistake of looking up at the bunk above me at 2:09 a.m. The person up there was not facing the ceiling. They were facing down, watching me through the slats. Their face was wrong. Their face was mine. Exactly mine. But wrong in the way a mirror is wrong reversed. Not a reflection. Reversed. Like a twin who has never been exposed to the concept of a smile and was attempting one without understanding. I checked out on the morning of May 5th. Before breakfast, I recommend this hostel if you intend to sleep, which you won't. 2 stars. Would not return. 11 days before I'd stayed there. Describing 2 nights in detail. Describing specific times. Describing something with my face in the bunk above mine. I had not written this review, but my username was there, my account. I logged in, checked my review history. The review was present in my account. Posted April 22nd, but I had no memory of writing it. No browser history suggesting I'd been on the site that day. No email confirmation. The review had been written from my account without my knowledge. About a stay I hadn't taken yet. About events scheduled to happen in 11 days. I called the booking platform. Explained. The customer service agent checked. Your account shows this review was posted from your device. Your IP address. April 22nd at 11:47 p.m. That's impossible. I didn't write this. Your account shows. I know what my account shows. I didn't write this review. Something else did. I canceled the booking. Got a full refund. Didn't go to Asheville. Didn't stay at the Ridgeline Hostel. But on May 3rd, the first night of the stay, I'd canceled. I woke at 2:09 a.m. in my own apartment in Chicago. 1,500 miles from Asheville. I woke at exactly 2:09 a.m. and looked at the ceiling above my bed and felt the certainty. The absolute physical certainty that if I looked long enough, a face would appear at the edge of my vision. My face, reversed. Attempting something that wasn't quite a smile. I didn't look. Kept my eyes forward. Kept my breathing steady. Lay still until 2:41 a.m. when the feeling faded. Second night, May 4th, 2:09 a.m. again. Same certainty. Same feeling. Same sense of something in the space above me that had my face and didn't understand expressions. I checked the Ridgeline Hostel reviews on May 6th. After the dates of the stay I'd canceled, the review was gone. My review, the one from April 22nd, renewed, no longer visible, like it had never been there. I logged into my account. The review was gone from my history too, completely erased. The platform confirmed it when I called. We don't have a record of a review from your account for this property. The review had existed, had been documented, had described events that I had then experienced in my apartment instead of the hostel, had then erased itself. Whatever wrote that review, whatever accessed my account from my IP address on April 22nd, had scheduled an experience for me, had prepared the architecture of something that would happen whether I went to Asheville or not, had used my account because it was mine, because whatever wanted to look at me from above with a reverse version of my face was somehow entangled with my identity, with my username, with my account. It couldn't follow me to Chicago, not fully, but it tried. 2 nights at 2:09 a.m. 2 nights of presence in the ceiling space above my bed, the $29 experience arriving at my home address instead of a bunk bed in Asheville. I've changed all my passwords, created a new booking platform account, different username, different email, different everything, but sometimes I scroll through hostel reviews, looking for my old username, looking for reviews posted from accounts that belong to other people, reviews describing stays that haven't happened yet, reviews describing faces seen in bunks above, faces that are your face but reversed, faces that don't understand what smiling means but are trying anyway. I haven't found another one, but I keep looking, because somewhere, on some platform, there might be a review in someone else's username, describing their future stay, describing 2:09 a.m., describing the face that appears, describing their experience before they've had a chance to decide whether to have it. The review will be accurate, every detail correct, every time exact, because whatever writes these reviews has already experienced them, has already been in those bunks looking down, has already attempted the expression it doesn't understand, and it writes the review in advance so you know it's coming, so you understand it was never random, never accidental. It chose you specifically. It chose your username. It chose your IP address. It chose your booking. It chose your face to mirror. And whether you stay in the hostel or cancel and hide at home, at 2:09 a.m. on the scheduled date, it will find the ceiling above you and look down and try to show you what it learned from studying your face from above. The review said 2 stars, would not return. It lied about one of those things. Story number 7. The motel room where the checkout time is permanent. I checked into the Lakeview Motor Lodge in rural Georgia for $35 on a Tuesday night, planning to leave by 11 a.m. Wednesday. And when 11 a.m. arrived, my key card still worked. When noon arrived, the front desk didn't answer. When 3 p.m. arrived, every other car in the lot was still present. And when I walked to the office, I found the manager dead at his desk, the date on his calendar reading the same Tuesday I'd checked in, and the realization that the checkout time at the Lakeview Motor Lodge was not Wednesday morning, but something that happened a long time ago and from which nobody was currently leaving. This was June 18th, 2024. Road trip. Southeast Loop. I'd driven through Georgia all day. Needed a room. The Lakeview Motor Lodge appeared around 9 p.m. Small. Isolated. A lake was presumably nearby, though invisible in the darkness. 16 units. Half a dozen cars in the lot. $35 cash. The manager was a heavy-set man named Phil. He processed my payment without looking up. Slid the key card across the counter. Room 8. Standard room. Tired furnishings, but clean. The smell of industrial cleaner. One window facing the parking lot. I could see my car and 6 others. A couple of the rooms had lights on. People settling for the night. I fell asleep watching television. Nothing unusual. Wednesday morning. 9 a.m. I woke. Checked out was 11. I showered. Packed. Made a coffee with the room's machine. Unhurried. Typical checkout morning. At 11 a.m. I walked to the front office with my key card. The door was locked. Sign said office hours, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. It was 11 a.m. Someone should have been there. I knocked. No response. I tried my key card on the door. It beeped. Unlocked. I pushed it open. Phil wasn't behind the counter. I went back to my room. I'd check out later. Maybe he'd stepped away. Maybe he had another employee coming. I'd leave the key card in the room if needed. Standard abandoned checkout procedure. Noon. I walked to the office again. Still locked. Still dark. Still no Phil. I noticed something. The 6 other cars from the previous night. All still present. Same positions. No one had left. No one had checked out. Nobody's car had moved in the 14 hours I'd been on the property. 1 p.m. I knocked on the doors of the rooms with those other cars. Room 2. No answer. I could hear sound inside. A television. Running. I knocked harder. No response. Room 4. Same. Television sound. No response to knocking. Room 11. Television. No response. But at this door, something else. Under the television's drone, another sound. Breathing. Close to the door. Like someone standing on the other side and breathing. Not answering. just breathing. "Hello?" I said. "Is everything okay in there?" The breathing continued, regular, not distressed, just present, just waiting. 2 p.m. I tried calling 911. My phone had signal. 3 bars. The call connected, rang twice, then played a tone I didn't recognize and disconnected. I tried again, same result. I tried calling my sister. Same tone, same disconnection. Every call attempted played that same tone, a sustained single note, slightly flat, that lasted 3 seconds before the line went dead. I tried texting. Messages showed as sent, no delivery confirmation, no responses. 3 p.m. I tried driving my car off the property. Started the engine, put it in reverse, back toward the lot exit. The exit opened onto a county road. I reached the lawn edge, pulled onto the county road, drove 50 feet. The road curved. I followed. The curve continued, came a full turn. I was on the property entrance road again, back in the parking lot, facing the same direction I'd started. I hadn't turned. The road had returned me without turning. The geometry of the property had bent. The exit led back to the entrance. The property had no outside. I parked, got out, walked to the property edge on foot, crossed the gravel lot boundary, stepped onto the county road, walked forward. After 60 feet, I was back on the motel's gravel lot, behind my car, facing backward. The property had no exterior. Every exit route looped back. Every attempt to leave returned me to the parking lot. The Lakeview Motor Lodge had become a closed space, a loop, an enclosure. I returned to the front office, used my key card, entered. This time I went behind the counter, into the back room where presumably Phil worked, processed payments, lived whatever modest life motel managers lived in rural Georgia. Phil was at his desk, in his chair, still, too still. His head was down, arms on the desk. The pose of someone sleeping, sitting up. Except he wasn't sleeping. His color was wrong. His stillness was different, the stillness of stopped things. The calendar on his wall showed June 18th, Tuesday, yesterday, the day I'd checked in. The paper was yellowed slightly at the edges, curled, like it had been hanging for much longer than one day. Phil's computer was on, screen showing the motel's booking system. June 18th showed 12 guests checked in. On June 19th today, the same 12 guests showed active, not checked out. None had checked out. The system showed 12 active rooms occupied continuously from the evening before, but the system also showed something else, a note in the property management system. Last updated by Phil on June 18th at 11:47 p.m. The note read, "This happens. 3rd time since I bought the property in 2011. The property locks. No one can leave. No one can arrive. We just have to wait it out. Last time was 2019. Lasted 11 days. Before that, 2015. 8 days. I've left food instructions in supply room. Guests should have everything they need. It always unlocks eventually. It always releases everyone. Nobody has ever been permanently trapped. The property keeps you comfortable. Just waits. Don't panic. Don't try the exits more than twice. Just wait. 11 days. 8 days. Previous lockdowns. Phil had experienced this before, had prepared, had left instructions, and had then apparently suffered a cardiac event at his desk sometime during the current lockdown's first day. I found the supply room, the instructions Phil had prepared, a note on the door: "If I'm not able to brief you personally, use what's in here. Non-perishable food for 20 guests for 15 days. Water. First aid. Generators on the south side if power fails. Be patient. The property always releases." The other guests were in their rooms, not panicked, not distressed. The breathing I'd heard through room 11's door, their regular patient breathing, was apparently the default state. Everyone waiting, following some instinct or prior experience that said stay calm, stay still, wait. I settled in. Room 8. My room. My $35 room that would apparently cost me more days than I'd budgeted for. I read Phil's previous notes about the lockdowns. He'd documented both. 2019, 8 days. 11 guests, including a family with 2 children, all released unharmed. 2015, 8 days, 4 guests, all released. The property had held them, fed them, kept the lights on. And then, one morning, the exits had simply worked again. The county road had continued past the curve. The loops had opened. The lake was visible from my window in the daylight. It was there, beautiful, still, a small dock, a rowboat tied to it. The property had withheld its namesake in my night arrival and revealed it in morning light. I walked to the lake on day 2, sat on the dock. The other guests emerged gradually, 11 people, plus me, all handling it differently. A couple from room 2, the first room I'd tried, were methodically calm. Had apparently stayed here before during a lockdown. Recognized the signs, were walking the property perimeter daily as exercise. An older man from room 11 was reading, had a novel, was treating it as an unexpected vacation, complained only about the Wi-Fi being down. A young woman from room 13 was understandably more distressed, kept trying the exit, kept experiencing the loop, kept processing the impossibility. I sat with her on day 3 when the distress peaked. "How are you not panicking?" she asked. "Phil's notes," I said. "He documented everything. There's evidence this ends, that everyone leaves intact. Sometimes you just have to sit with the impossible and wait for it to normalize." Day 5, I helped her fish from the dock. She'd never fished before. The lake had base. Phil had rods in the supply room. Of course he did. Phil had prepared for everything except his own cardiac event. Day 9, the exit worked. I drove to the county road edge. The curve continued, didn't loop. I stopped. Got out. Walked to where previous attempts had returned me to the lot. Kept walking. The road went forward. Through a quarter-mile of trees, to a junction with another county road, signs pointing to the nearest town. I went back, told the other guests. We all checked out. Left our key cards on the office counter. Left Phil as we'd found him. Called 911 from 3 miles away where the tone disconnection no longer occurred. Phil had been dead for 9 days. He'd had a cardiac event on the night of the lockdown's beginning. Had documented everything. Had prepared everything. Had died alone in his office while 12 guests experienced the locked property in varying degrees of adaptation. His will left the motel to a niece in Atlanta. She sold it 6 months later. New owners, new management. The Lakeview Motor Lodge was rebranded as a vacation rental property. Nice website, good photos of the lake. But they still used the original room structure. Still 12 rooms. Still the same physical property that locked itself in 2015, in 2019, and 2024. I wonder if they found Phil's notes, his documentation, his inventory of previous lockdowns and supplies for guests. I wonder if they know the property locks. I wonder if their guests know that sometimes checkout time isn't up to you. Sometimes checkout time is up to the property. Sometimes you pay $35 for one night and walk out of 9 days later carrying the memory of a lake you didn't know existed, and a fish you caught on day 5, and the particular quality of patience you develop when the impossible becomes your temporary normal. The Lakeview Motor Lodge is listed as a 4-star vacation rental now. 19 reviews. All positive. All mentioning the lake. All noting the peaceful isolation. 3 of the reviews mention losing track of time. Say things like, "We ended up staying longer than planned, and the days blurred together beautifully, and we meant to leave Sunday, but somehow it was the following week before we knew it." None of them mention the exit loop. None mention the single flat tone when you try to call out. None mention what happens when the property decides checkout isn't today. But they gave it 4 stars. The same stars I'd give it, because Phil was right. It always releases you, and there are worse places to be held than somewhere with a lake and a rowboat and a dock, and enough time to finally sit still and learn what patience actually costs. $35 a night, however many nights it needs.